But right now we're talking about labor exploitation, and you haven't actually addressed the fact that labor is not a commodity, or should not be a commodity to be, profited off. Why should someone take the labor of everyone else and then accrue, become really wealthy off other people's labor? The workers,
because they're making them richer.
They're not making them richer.
They're enriching their lives.
They're not.
They're giving them money to do a job. They're giving them money to do a job that they would otherwise not have.
That isn't. They own means of production, so they force people into those jobs.
No, they don't force anyone into it. It's voluntary.
It's not voluntary. What, work or die, basically? Because that's the case.
You're gonna. If you don't work you can work for yourself. You don't have to work for someone else.
What are you going to work with? You don't own means of production. You don't own any land. I mean,
you can buy a plot of land and you can be a farmer.
You can afford a plot of land, can you?
If you work for it, you can.
Exactly. If you work for it by going.
Owen, listen. This has nothing to. What your problem has nothing to do with capitalism.
Yes, it does.
Your problem has to do with work.
No,
you don't think people should have to work. I mean, people are going to have to work with what they're. Before capitalism existed, people had to work to get the land that they wanted.
Focus on what we're talking about, which is Southeast Asia.
But you're jumping around.
No, the means of production are owned privately. All the land is, on a free market. You can't own anything because it's all, held off by the capitalist. To get food and, healthcare and a place to live and stuff, you need money, and you need somehow a way of paying for that on a free market. You don't just have money, so you have to sell your labor.
Yeah, you earn money.
You have to sell your labor to the capitalist.
To earn money. From those capitalists.
Yes, but that's not
the money.
Will you listen, please? It's not about. You can laugh if you want, but you're not listening to what's being said. Going back to the start of the whole, this whole point, the idea that you can just say that a government is not capitalist and somehow separate the state from capitalism.
No, what I'm not saying that the government isn't capitalist. What I'm saying is that when you say something is not socialist because, and I am saying, well, I can use your same argument to say it's not capitalist because.
But it's not the same argument, though.
It is as
what are the core tenets? What are the core tenets of socialism? What is socialism?
Do you want the real world example, or do you want?
Tell me what socialism is. Someone said, "What's socialism, therefore?"
The definition is a political and economic theory of social organization that advocates the means of production, distribution, and exchange should be owned or regulated by the community as a whole. But you have to have those things first in order to.
That doesn't mean you have to have those things.
In order to create our last conversation.
Ignore what you personally think about socialism. You just read it out, yeah? Worker ownership and means of production, the end of the social oppression, of state and social class. Therefore, a specific thing, the idea that workers should own it all. There shouldn't be this idea of private property and class systems and stuff. Now, was that seen in Soviet Russia, which had a dictator, or North Korea, which has basically a monarchy, essentially, feigning as a democracy? If your analysis of socialism is so bad that you essentially say the system of socialism was found in Soviet Russia because they just called it socialist, that's not good. Now, switch the situation to capitalism,
what I'm saying,
where the core tenets of capitalism are not upheld. No, sorry, the core tenets of capitalism are upheld in this system. Private property. The private property of the wealthy is maintained under this system. The state does that with the police and with the laws to protect the wealthy. That's what the state is. It's not it's not created in spite of capitalism. It's created because of capitalism.
If I may,
not finished.
I've got another definition for you.
There's no other definition.
I do. I have one for you.
Another definition.
Yes.
Joseph Stalin.
Capitalism. An economic and political system in which the country's trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit rather than by the state. So the more the state intervenes, the less capitalist it becomes. Fascism. The definition of fascism is a definition of fascism.
No, stop. We're moving. Why do you keep changing the topic? Which,
Because
I'm
conflate
trying to focus on one thing, right? And you're just switching to other ones. I literally said at the start, let's focus on one thing.
I know, but
Yeah, so if
you
know,
keep going back to things that you
I'm
were
trying to
talking
come
about
back to
previously.
stuff that you've said, and then you've switched it, 4 or 5 topics later. Of course, I'm trying to keep it.
But
to
what
one
I'm
thing.
saying is, you brought up the definition of socialism.
only
So I
in the
looked up the
context of
definition of
capitalism.
socialism.
No,
I looked up the
right,
definition of
good.
capitalism. They reflected what each of us were saying.
Horse.
And what I'm saying is,
hold on a second. I only brought up definitions to show you that the argument of, oh, well, if you're saying no true socialism and I can say no true capitalism is
you
wrong,
said no.
because there's fundamental, it's not no true socialism. It's this country fundamentally was not socialist. The CEO needs the labor of everyone else in that factory to make their money. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if he needs them, why is it fair for them to make billions, yet the people who are fundamental to the process receive nothing?
They do.
Like
they receive something.
But next to nothing then. Enough so that they're trapped in that job whilst the billionaire is living a life of luxury.
They're not
Yes,
trapped.
Where are they going to go then? Where are they going to go?
Another factory. I mean,
that's exactly
another factory. They can go work in the field. They can go farm. I mean, the whole point. The whole reason that they worked there to begin with.
Who owns the land in a farm?
The whole reason they worked there to begin with is because it's a better situation.
Exactly, and it's still miserable. So that's the whole point of what I'm trying to say.
So they made their life slightly better. How are you complaining about this?
Are you listening to yourself? That's the whole point of capitalism. It's about making.
So they made this person's life slightly better because they make more money. They can live
in a field. It's now they're slogging in a factory. Oh, brilliant! That's the whole point of what we're saying.
14-hour days in a field in the hot sun is not, is not nearly as great as sitting and putting screws in a.
Based on what? Like you said, you've never done it in Southeast Asia, where there's no, they don't have to have any health and safety because it's just they can just dump anything anywhere.
So it's not a one-person thing. It's a, like the whole Foxconn thing. It's not an American company where they just, this specific company is to blame for everything. Apple is to blame for everything that happens at Foxconn, because what Foxconn is their own thing, and they subcontract out to different companies.
Those companies.
The reason. Listen, wait. The reason why they can do the reason they do these things is these Chinese companies, they will have the factory, they'll build the factory, everything's set up to build a certain thing or something similar, and then the American company or the British company or the whatever company will say, well, we need this part, and can you make this many, and we need it for this amount of months, and so can you do that? And then in the Asian, Southeast Asian company will say, sure, we'll do that. But with a funnier accent.
Why is it a funny accent?
It's a joke, man.
It wasn't a very funny joke.
I know.
Why say it then?
But anyway, so they'll do this for they'll do this for the money, man, and
exactly, they'll do it for the money. That's the whole point. Capitalism is about making money, whatever doesn't matter. It
enriches people's lives, man.
It's those people who died in the factory collapse. They had their lives enriched.
No, they didn't, obviously. But what I'm saying,
why did it happen?
It's because the freaking country had poor had poor safety regulations.
Why did that happen?
I don't know.
Because you do know the corporations, the wealthy, lobby to cut a corner to make more money, to not have to bother with regulations about health and safety, because they can make more profits not having to install basic building structural safety techniques and stuff. It all comes down.
My point is, you're blaming.
Your point is irrelevant because you're not
blaming people that don't have anything to do with it. That's my point. You're blaming. So whereas you could, instead of saying, this such and such company is to blame, and it's capitalism because of this. And I'm like, no, it's because of the country, and they didn't have these basic common sense laws in place.
It's not common sense.
I'm not an anarchist. I want there to be some laws, and there needs to be some things to do that, where safety is concerned. Which American citizens? What are you talking about?
The ones who don't have clean drinking water in Flint, for instance. The ones who
okay. Well, no. We'll pause there. I'll explain. I'll explain. No, because you're gonna jump to something else if I don't.
Yeah, because I'm listing things that America doesn't do for its country.
I'll tell you about.
No, you won't tell me.
Because you don't understand.
You won't tell me. I do. You don't understand, said Mr. What? It's no one's fault but a factory collapsed in another country.
The reason that Flint is in its problem is because
I haven't finished speaking about the thing I was speaking about.
I know, but you're gonna blame 5 different things. I'm gonna be able to address one of those things.
Write it down then.
Because if I bring it up later, you're gonna be like, wait, let me talk about that, and I'm like, no.
You've always been changing the topic. Now you asked me something. I'm going to list some stuff for you, and you're not going to just jump in after one thing I've listed.
So what happened in Flint is the greed of it happened because of basically the city of Flint and the county, and basically they were making a certain amount of money off taxes, and so they started giving these state workers these union state workers exorbitant paychecks that they thought they were just going to keep getting this same amount of money, right? But what happened is they started to fall in hard times, man. You can't give out these crazy salaries and retirement stuff without having a plan, a way to pay for it all. And so they just kept doing that essentially. And rather than fixing the things like the pipes that they were supposed to be fixing, they decided to keep their promise to these unions, and they overpaid them. That's just what happened, and they overpaid them at the expense of the people who lived in Flint. And that was just, it's just from decades of corruption of the unions saying, well, we need this much money and we need this much money, and we're not making enough money, even though they were making, plenty, basically. And because that, everyone suffered. And, that's another just example of power, power corrupting.
So they were driven by greed, did you say? And they need to save money by cost cutting and stuff.
They didn't cost cut. They didn't do anything. And this is the fact that what I'm saying is the fact that the unions had enough power to go after these, to demand that all of these the government, basically, the government give them a certain thing, and because everybody thought, well, the unions are great and they're, we should support them, and they're the people, they're the working man, despite all their thuggish tactics, they voted in the same people who would keep these people. Essentially the unions would use their power to threaten people, right? And then they would threaten people, and they threaten the corporation. They threaten. And this happens. This is a thing that happens with unions in general. They threaten either corporations or the state to get what they want, and it's because they have all these people, essentially a mob of people that work for them.
And disagree, but
okay, well, that's fine. You can do that, but that's just, they have that type of.
What I'm asking though is, why is Flint now in a situation where there's no clean drinking water and they're having to have it shipped in bottles and stuff? How
Right.
did that?
My point is that instead of them saying that, instead of the local government saying that, hey, we need to fix these pipes, we can't afford to pay these unions, and they're because things have fallen on hard times, and we're so used to having this budget to pay these local workers, local government workers. We don't have the money to pay for them anymore, right? And so instead of allocating the funds where they belonged, like where in the infrastructure of the pipes and stuff to get people clean drinking water, they have done they've decided that, well, these unions will come in and threaten us, and they'll destroy us, and then we won't be able to get reelected or shit like that. They just cowered. They cowered before these unions.
So they gave in to the pressure of what, greed, you would say? Wanting more money?
Greed. Greed is one thing. Greed can be good or bad. And this is force. They're using their force.
What caused it though? Be succinct. Don't go into like a ramble about how much you dislike unions. Talk about what caused the situation in Flint to occur.
That is what I was trying to explain. Is it had more to do with rather than you're blaming it on capitalism, but like if it was capital, it has nothing. It's a state. Okay. What I'm saying is it's a local issue that has nothing to do with the federal government or even the state government. It has to do with the local government. The point I was making about fascism is that it involves the control of it involves nationalizing things. It involves taking over areas of the market.
Nationalizing?
Yes.
So like what happened to land in Germany, Nazi Germany? That's privatized. Where does the term privatization come from? Actually, it would be an interesting point. Where does that come from? Privatization.
Well, privatization involved. I mean,
no, but where did the term get coined?
It doesn't matter where it get coined.
Yes, it does. Nazi Germany.
It makes zero difference.
It doesn't matter. Are you serious?
Why would it matter? Why? Why does that matter?
How can you tell me that something?
Capitalism didn't come from us. Capitalism is a term created by communists. It doesn't matter where the
privatization, the term, the idea was coined. That phrase that we use regularly to describe an element of right-wing thought and capitalism came from Nazi Germany to describe what the Nazis did to the economy and to land in Nazi Germany. It fundamentally comes from that. So it's tedious and really naive to suggest that fascism is not capitalism just because there's control. Capitalism is based about control anyway. I mean, for all this guff about the free market, fundamentally it's about the ruling class maintaining control over the workers. Hence, American imperialism. Hence, the dismal treatment of workers across the globe. Hence, the consolidation of wealth and power to the wealthy. Fundamentally, at every turn, it's about that, and it doesn't really matter what you think because that's the case. The capitalist doesn't care that you don't call fascism an element of capitalism. In fact, they embrace that because it just pushes them another step towards normalizing tenets of fascism. As we're seeing today.
My point was the reason who coined it isn't it doesn't have anything to do with them. A capitalist didn't coin the term capitalism. Fucking socialists did.
Yes, but that doesn't mean that the
So you pointing out that a fucking Nazi coined the term privatization
Nazis didn't coin the term.
Shit.
The Nazis didn't coin the term. It was coined to describe the Nazis' economic policies because fundamentally it was capitalist. And they didn't call themselves that. But that doesn't mean anything.
They took over large sections of the economy. It has nothing. That is not privatization. That is not privatization. Privatization. When you privatize something, you are getting rid of the control from the government. And they did. You were getting rid of it.
They hand control
power Getting
the
rid of it.
corporations. They did that